Welcome back to the Woodgrafter, part 2 in our mini-series looking at how we price our products. That sounds good? Stick around. So this is the second part in our mini-series. Last time we got together we looked at how we created the overall hourly rate, and today I want to take that hourly rate and apply it to a product so we can work out how to price a product. The product in question is this little beast here behind me, just a very simple display cabinet. Quite deceptive, a lot of joinery inside that cabinet, so it's a good one to really have a look at how we create a price point. Might look familiar, it was the one I created in this video some time ago when I was testing out my router table, but since then the design's matured and I've got some templates that speed up production, so it's a good one to have a look at. Now we have updated the template since we were together last time. It's now got the product information that we're going to walk through today, and as always this will be available as part of the YouTube bundle over on my website www.thewoodgrafter.com. So here's the template that we used last week, and we were creating up our hourly rate, and a number of people have fed back on this. First thing is, people talk about the premises and the run rates of the business and the vehicle leasing, say, hey, I don't have those in my business. But that's okay, if you don't have them, don't use them. But one thing to just bear in mind, depends what you want your business to be. Now if you're always going to run your business from home, then there's a good chance you don't need the premises or the rates or the vehicle lease, so just simply don't put them in there. But if you do think at some point your business is going to scale and you will need those moving forward, then it's a good idea to drop them in now, even as you're starting out with your business. Otherwise you get to a point where you want to scale and there's not enough money in the business to cover that, because all you're doing is covering your costs here. And if your costs are suddenly going to increase with a vehicle or premise or rates, etc., you've nothing to actually fill that gap. So as you're doing your hourly rate, plan for that future as part of your hourly rate is my overall advice. But it's your business, so do what you think is right for your business. I'm just giving you a template here to work through as an idea, as an approach. Take the learning from it and do the right thing for yourself. The other thing is, I did make a mistake in the calculation last week. I had a typo in one of the formulas and I was just calculating the number of available working days incorrectly. That's now fixed, so my actual hourly rate I'm working to is £45.49 with this fictitious scenario. Another good point, these are not my figures, these were average figures I just pulled off to the internet for the sake of the conversation. Let's look at the product. When you're pricing your product, there's a number of things that you really need to think about. Your material costs, so the raw materials that come into products. The production costs, how long it takes you to actually make this thing. The price point, therefore, allowing for some margin in the business. Now margin is one of those areas that people are going to look at and say, hold on a minute, I know my hourly rate, I'm covering the cost of my business, and I'm also covering an income for me, why do I need a margin? Well, if you don't charge a margin on your products, what will happen is your business breaks even. You take the salary, you cover the cost of the business, there's nothing else to reinvest inside that business. And that again might be okay, and you might not want margin on your products. But a good healthy margin is about 20% on your products. So you pay your staff, i.e. you cover the overheads of the business, then you put a margin on the products, 20%, that you can reinvest into that business. And again, it's up to you to work out what you want to do with that. Some products will make healthy margin, some products may lose you money, but you want to keep the products out there for brand awareness. Again, up to you. You need to sell these things. Most people tend to look at Etsy or Amazon handmade type marketplaces. They will charge you a fee, so we need to understand what those fees are. And you've got to ship out your package to your customers, the packaging material and the postage charges overall. So all these are important factors as you start to build up your business. So as I say, we're going to have a look at this cabinet here. I'm not going through the construction of this or the design of this. You've seen that elsewhere. First thing I want to look at is design hours. Now inside our hourly rate, if you remember, I had some design days here, product development days, and inside my product development days were also design days. So you won't always need design hours on top of the design days that you do. But you may want to customize it, a custom amount to tweak, you might want to change it. So there might be some configuration that you do. However, in this case there isn't. I've got the design, I'm happy, I'll move forward. Raw material stock costs. This is made of 9mm MDF and that's about half a full-size sheet, so the costs of that £8.74. Now I do actually print out some brackets for this, and that's just to hold it onto the wall. A bit of a custom design there, and that takes filament, so that's where I would add the filament. I'm not going to do that just yet because I want to come back to that conversation. Raw materials, paint. So the painting of this cost me around about £7.60 in paint. That's 2 coats of undercoat, MDF primer undercoat, and then 2 coats of eggshell paint on the top. And any other raw materials, well, assuming I'm not going to make the brackets, I've got to buy the brackets. There's also some screws and plugs, so it's about £1.50 overall. Now when it goes to production, production is really based on how long it takes you to do something and your hourly rate. That's why the hourly rate was so important. So I've just imported the hourly rate up here so we can see it, £45.49. Now my stock preparation to actually cut all these parts out here before I start the joinery takes about half an hour, so that's 0.5 of an hour. The joinery itself is really quite complicated. Every one of these intersections is actually an overlap joint where we're actually coming together like that. And that takes some time and work to get done. And in fact, it takes me about 2 hours 10 minutes to actually create the joinery on that particular cabinet. 2 hours 10 minutes, 2.16 of an hour. The glue up, it's a pain to glue up actually. It was surprising how hard it is to glue up. I really do need to improve that, but that was half an hour, 0.5 of an hour. Bit of paint preparation, not an awful lot, a bit of 10 minutes of light sanding just to take up any glue marks, that sort of thing, so again 0.16 of an hour. Painting, I'm now spray painting these, as I said, 2 undercoats and 2 top coats. That's taken me about half an hour to actually spray that up, and that includes cleaning the gun down at the end of the day. And then any final finishing and touch-ups I want to do. There's not an awful lot on this, it comes out pretty well consistently, so I'm not going to put anything inside that. So you can see straight away, just allowing for my raw materials and my production costs at my hourly rate, this is coming in at £191.60. I'm not sure I'd pay £191.60 for that, but we've not finished yet. As I've already said, if you don't charge margin on your business and you just go for your hourly rate, all you're actually doing is giving yourself a salary and running the overhead of the business. There's no investment back into the business. So I'm going to drop in quite a sexy, exciting 20% margin on my products. The obvious place to sell this sort of thing is on Etsy, but Etsy charges you fees. It's not overly complicated, and you can go and Google Etsy fees and give you a breakdown of that. Inside Etsy there are charges for actually listing the product, recurring charges every 4 months. Inside Etsy they take a commission on everything that you sell as well. They do by default turn on advertising, which is a huge overhead. It's into the tens and tens and tens of percentage of overhead that they take if they ship one of your products, and you can turn that off. But if you allow for around about 12% fees from Etsy to sell on their website, you're not going to be too far away. Amazon handmade is somewhat easier to understand. It's 15% on what you sell. And there's other sites as well you could use. You could set an eBay store up, you could do it on notonthehighstreet.com. So there's different ways you can do that. But the point is, go and understand the fees that you're going for and have a look at that. Now you can see by the time I put the fees on this, I'm now up to selling on Etsy, which is the obvious choice. In fact, let's take Amazon out of the equation. But then I've got to get this thing shipped. I've got to go into postage and packaging. So I've looked around on the internet and I've just got a standard cardboard sleeve that this will package quite nicely inside, and if I buy enough in bulk I can get that down to 50p. And then the postage itself, there's a great website, www.parceltogo.com, and that will allow you to put postal addresses in, the size, the weights of your parcel, and it gives you a comparison of all the different suppliers out there who will ship your parcel around that. I just checked for one that managed a parcel of this size, and £4.83 would be my postal costs. So my price point to sell this on Etsy is now £262.84. There's a lot of work goes into this type of product, and I can understand why it's that much, having made it. However, I don't think the market would attract £262.84. So I want to find a way of reducing that cost. Now I don't want to change the income that I get from my business, and I don't want to change the overhead of the business, and I'd like to maintain some sort of margin. So I want to find a way of increasing my production, the productivity in my production, to get that price down considerably. And you can see that the big expense is the joinery, and that's worth knowing. How can I get my joinery down? Now if you followed the channel for a while, you know I've already started to invest in CAM, computer aided manufacturing, and that was 100% to start to get productivity into this sort of thing should I decide to ship that into the marketplace. And I now want to introduce a new concept that a lot of people miss, and that's what I call the CAM hourly rate, computer aided manufacturing hourly rate. I have two types of production in my workshop. I have one that requires Andy Gile and all his skills to be driving a tool to create something. And I have one that doesn't require an Andy Gile, a computer does it all for me. That computer is a great way of bringing in joinery, and I know you get to the eternal debate, is CAM really woodworking? Should it all be hand tools? Should it be a purist hand tool? In a business it doesn't really matter. It's about productivity. It's about getting that price point down as low as you can to be attractive in the marketplace or to increase your profitability. CAM is great for that. So I've got the concept of CAM hourly rate. Now I have two CAM machines in my workflow. I have a CNC, computer numeric controller. I create the computer code and that cuts out the project for me. And I have a 3D printer that prints brackets and templates and other great stuff. And this is how I work out the hourly rate for my CAM machines. So I take the cost of the machine, I then add an allowable maintenance cost on top of that, round about 10% or so, because these machines do break. And if you're already relying on this for production and it goes down, you've got big problems because production stops. So it's worthwhile just having some spare parts around that you can quickly throw on there and move forward, even if it's in warranty. If your machine's down for 3 or 4 or 5 days while the warranty kicks in and sorts itself out, you're still losing production time, which is expensive. So I put a 10% overhead in there, just carry some key parts in the workshop. And that gives me a total cost of the machine. In accountancy, there's a concept for depreciation. So you buy a machine and then there's a different ways you can depreciate it, write the value of the machine off over time. I just use what's known as a linear approach. So I write a portion of the machine off every single month. At the end of 3 years, the machine has no value inside, and at that point, I'd refresh and renew the machine for something bigger, better, more up to date. That's the depreciation cost. So I have a linear depreciation of 3 years. I'm not going to get into that in detail on this video, and a good accountant will advise you on the best way to do it. That's just what I do. We've already calculated some gross working hours. If you go back to the hourly rate, we had this gross working hour figure here, and that was basically the hours working in a day multiplied by the working days that you have in a year. I'm working on the assumption that you don't want these machines running if you're not around or you're not near your workshop. You want them going away in the background getting the work done, but also they don't need a lunch break and they don't need to travel to and from the workshop because they're already there. So I can take the gross working hours because they don't have a break. 1718, that carries forward. I've still got this busy business percentage concept, and I've used the same figure of 60%. If you've not seen the previous video, the 60% is just how busy I'm going to be. The CNC is only productive if you've got work to make it productive, and that's not always going to come through. So I work on around about 60%. So 60% of 1718 is 1031. That's how many working hours per year my machine is likely to be running doing stuff. Remember, I'm depreciating over 3 years, so my total CNC hours, 3092. So I've got to recover the cost of my machine over 3092 hours. And that gives me a CNC hourly rate of 76 pence. 76 pence as opposed to the £45 that I cost. So you can see why it's well worthwhile if you're looking at productivity to invest in some sort of CAM machine. Just for completeness, my 3D printer cost me £199, 10% overhead, £218.90, again depreciated over 3 years, etc, etc, etc. 7 pence an hour to run my machine. Now you might start to scream here at me utilities, but don't forget, inside our hourly rate, we're already allowed for some utility charges, electric for example. So now I've got some productivity gains, I can now revisit our project. So this is the same template, but you can now see I've put my CAM hours in. So I can now look at my product in a slightly different way. Now I do have a slight increase on design hours because now I've got to create the machine code that's going to run my machines. Now it's not hard, but you do need to allow for that. And it's about 10 minutes it takes me to cut machine code these days. So it's about 0.16 of an hour, £7.28. My raw materials don't change an awful lot, so it's £8.74 for the stock. Now I do now have a filament charge because I'm going to be using some filament on the 3D printing, and that would run for the amount I'm using about £1.05. Raw materials for the paint stays the same, so it's about £7.60. and the raw material of others reduces right down because I don't need an awful lot, and that comes down to about 20 pence or so. Now I don't need to do stock preparation because literally on the CNC machine I bang in a sheet of 9mm MDF and the machine does the rest, so I'm going to allow for no stock preparation time. But joinery time for the CNC to cut all those moving parts, that's cutting everything down to size, putting all the miter corners on, all this internal joinery, all the joinery on the side for holding the frame together. It takes about 6 hours for the machine to do that, so we'll drop 6 hours inside that. Now I've not found a way of automating glue ups yet, so our glue up stays the same, 0.5. Having glued this up a few times, I know where the gotchas are. It's holding these joints together on the edges whilst you've got pressure on these corners as well. So I've actually developed a 3-stage glue process that makes this a lot easier, and although the elapsed time is slightly longer, my input time is considerably shorter. I'm pretty confident that I can slash my glue up time down to about 1/4 of an hour, 0.25. I still need to do preparation before I paint, so I still need to take any glue marks off, about 10 minutes, 0.16 of an hour, and painting is about the same, half an hour, 0.5. Now you can see my costs have now come down considerably. £66.26 for the manual stuff and £4.59 for the CAM stuff. Oh, sorry, I forgot the 3D printer. Now to actually print out my little brackets, 4 of those, and again I just get the thing printing and go away. That takes about 6 hours to print, it's not fast, but it's only 42 pence because my 3D hours is only 7 pence an hour, so really quite low. So my people costs, the Andy Gale costs, are £66.26 to create this product, and my CAM costs are £5.01. So my overall price now of this unit to build and recover all the costs and all the time, £71.27, which is a much more reasonable price for something like that, I think. I still want to bang in my healthy margin, my 20% margin overall, and Etsy is still going to charge me about 15% overhead, and my packaging costs are pretty much the same. But I've now got this down to £103.39 as opposed to the £262.84 we started off doing it manually. So £103.69 is probably not far off where we need to be. Now the other thing to bear in mind, and a lot of you will be right on the money with this one, you've got to invest in that machinery. But if you remember, in our hourly rate, we allowed for equipment, £4,200 a year. So I could actually invest in my equipment pretty much in year one, even if I lease that and allow that depreciation to work in that way. I could still bring that into there as part of our hourly rate charges, part of the overhead of the business. So I don't get to the point where my individual products are picking that up beyond the hourly rate. And that's why things like your busy hours become so important to you in the early days. Now a lot of you get in touch with me, say, hey, you know, I'm a hobbyist, I'm retired, I'm getting back into this sort of thing to run it as an overall hobby business, which is exactly where I'm going to be, which is why I set up the Woodgrafter in the first place. Not to give me an income, I've already got a different income coming in, but I can retire early and I've got something that sustains me. So what I'm going to do is to just make this a little bit more realistic. I'm just going to take out those prices that I don't need personally, or I don't need in terms of running the business. I don't have a mortgage, so I'm going to take out my mortgage cost. Council tax I have, utilities I have, life insurance I have, entertainment I have, family vehicle I have, phone I have, house insurance I have, investments and savings. Well, I'll be drawing on my investments and savings when I retire, food and fun. But I do want a family holiday, so I'm going to drop about £300 a month in for a family holiday, about £3,600 a year just to potter around somewhere. So I still do want to draw an income down of about 17,136 pence, which is groovy. I'm not intending to actually buy a premises, many of you in the same space. I'm going to continue to work it in my little workshop as I have. Therefore I don't have those overheads, and therefore I don't have my rates. My insurance is going to be a lot less than that, about £20 a month. I will still have utility charges, but not the full utility charges I have in a big premises. Equipment, I will still probably invest in equipment. I still need my accountant. Phone, I don't actually need. My web I do have, and I'll be quite dependent on my web, so I'm going to increase that to about 40. Vehicle lease, I won't need a vehicle, and therefore I won't need fuel per se. So even when I retire, I'll still be running the YouTube channel, so my advertising revenue will have increased by about 300. Affiliate sales are probably going to near to about 700, and education from the school, which hopefully will be the main source, will probably be about 500 once I get that moving forward. Days in the working week, I'll probably work about 4 days a week, want to enjoy my retirement. I'll still have some admin days, product development days, holidays away from the business, yep, sick days, yep, and stock days, yep. So 123 will be my total working days. Hours in the day, yeah, I won't have travel time because I'm working from my home studio, so that can come out of there. My productivity in the business has probably increased by this point, so I'm going to go for 80% productivity. So my required gross income will change, so let's whiz into our salary calculator. 19,814 according to salary calculator. So therefore, to actually run my retirement business, I only need to be earning about £10.96 an hour, which is not too bad. There will be some other pensions and investments I've got that will come in that will offset that, but the longer I can leave those investments, the better. So if I can get this business to sustain me in my retirement, happy, happy days. So if I now come back to our calculator, dropping in my new hourly rate, because this sheet all auto-calculates, my hourly rate is £10.96. My CNC, my 3D printer is going to be running. I can now make this product ship to the end user for £55.45. So I look at something that's a bit more realistic for the Woodgrafter in the retirement business that I'm building up at the moment. £55.45 is a good recommended retail price for that product. If I wanted one of those, I'll probably pay about £69–70 for it, at a guess. 55, 45, and 20% of that is profit to reinvest back into the business, which is pretty awesome, I think. So that's how I work on my recommended retail price. It's the hourly rate, it's productivity using the CAM type things I've invested into the workshop recently. It's a realistic view of my hourly rate, and it's breaking down the product itself so I understand exactly the costs that go into that to generate the recommended retail price. That may not be the price that I take into the marketplace. And we're going to look at the market price for this product in the next video. I hope you find this useful. Looking forward to your comments. See you soon on the Woodgrafter.